This is the 1907 W.T. Carter and Brothers Class B Shay Locomotive. I'm Darren, and this is the Industrial Revolution. This 1907 Class B locomotive was built for Bering manufacturing to use on the Bering, Kiam Southern Railroad in Texas. It was originally built to burn wood, but was eventually converted to burn coal. The tender, with the rail around the top, actually holds a full 2 cords of wood. At some point, the locomotive was transferred to W.T. Carter and Brothers Lumber Company in Camden, Texas, before being retired in the 1920s. Eventually, number 2 here found its way to the Stephen F. Austin State University in Texas, where it sat on static display until 2021. In 2021, the Harbor Springs Area Historical Society moved the Shay up here to Harbor Springs and completed a full cosmetic restoration before placing it in Shay Park in June of 2025. It now sits directly across the road from Ephraim Shay Home and right next to Shay's all-steel steamboat, the Aha. See my separate video on that, it's linked in the description. But why did we actually need a Shay locomotive anyway? And why were they so popular in areas like logging? When logging, cutting down the trees might actually be the easy part. Then you have to transport the logs. Hooking them up to horses and dragging them out of the forest one by one works, but is incredibly slow. That led to horse-drawn tramways, where temporary tracks were laid down to pull wagons full of logs. While much faster, steep grades created problems, especially downhill, when the full wagons could get out of control and overtake the horses, which, as you can imagine, didn't end well for the horses. Traditional locomotives, especially smaller ones, like tank engines, were tried, but they weren't really well suited to the steeper grades or the rough nature of the temporary logging railroads. This led to Shay developing something new. This is an early prototype of his locomotive, but it pretty quickly evolved. So what is it that actually makes a Shay special? Well, when you first look at a Shay, the first clue that something's not right is the boiler is way over there. Every other locomotive that you've seen, pretty much the boiler is dead center, everything's very symmetric. On this one, the boiler is shifted over to the left, and there's a really good reason for that. And that's actually the second key feature of a Shay locomotive. Let's go around the side and take a look. So these are the 3 cylinders for this Shay locomotive. They're vertical cylinders, vertical pistons, which is really weird for steam locomotives. Normally you have, on each side you'll have one horizontal cylinder and a piston, and here we have vertical. The vertical pistons run down to a drive shaft down here. You see you have the crank mechanisms here that drive the drive shaft. That drive shaft is responsible for driving the driver wheels, and that's the third key feature of a Shay locomotive. Let's go take a look. Okay, here are the driver wheels on this Shay locomotive, and you'll notice that unlike most steam locomotives, these wheels are pretty much normal size. And unlike most locomotive driver wheels, there's all this weird gearing in here. Well, you have the drive shaft just coming up here, and it runs this gear to drive the wheel. Now, the reason you do that is you can actually put drivers on every single wheel on the locomotive and on the tender. This is under the tender here. So these 2 wheels are on a standard truck or bogie, depending on what country you're in. So this can rotate independently of the truck that's up front. And that means that your wheels can go like this, and that lets you go around really, really sharp turns, except there's a problem with that. The reason that standard steam locomotives can't go around really sharp turns is because they have one cylinder, they have one piston on each side, it drives the set of drivers. The drivers have to stay on a straight line and they can't flex because that would require you to change the length and the angle on the driver rods. That's Shay's other critical invention that allowed for the creation of the Shay locomotive. So between each set of trucks and between the pistons here and the trucks, you have to have a set of these. So what are we looking at? So you have these two round discs here. These are universal joints, and that allows you to bend things like this. And you've probably used universal joints, or at least seen them. They're commonly used on like electric screwdrivers and things to let you get around corners. So this means that the shaft can come in like this, and this front part going to the front truck can actually bend to the side. And you have two of these here, and then you have this part in the middle, which is called a prismatic joint. This prismatic joint is just a big square tube with a slightly smaller square tube in it. And the reason is, as this front truck rotates this way relative to the rest of the train, this comes back. If the front truck rotates that way, this comes out. And this allows the length of the shaft here to change. So the main body of the locomotive, with the cylinders, the boiler, all of that is all together. That's all fixed. Each of the trucks, and on this one there's two trucks, but you can have a lot more as you get to bigger Shay locomotives. You can have many sets of trucks on them, all driven. Each set of trucks can rotate independently, and these joints, the two universal joints and the one prismatic joint, this is what allows those trucks to rotate independently, and that's what allows the Shay locomotives to handle curves that would derail any standard locomotive. So one of the interesting things that you can get a really good look at on this locomotive is the braking system. So as we close in on the wheel here, you can see the brake pad. The wheel and everything's been painted black just to prevent rust. You see you have the wheel here, and this is the brake pad, the brake shoe, that clamps up against the wheel. Now how does it get there? Well, you have this beam over here, suspended by these chains, and that's actually connected to both brakes on the side. And then in the middle, you have these connecting rods. And you also have brakes up on the front wheels. So when the brakes are activated, it pulls on those rods, and it pulls the brake shoes up against the wheels, and it stops the train. So although the cylinders here are vertical, they still have all the same stuff that you have on a regular locomotive. You have the main cylinder here. You have the valve gear right here. This stuff right here, this is what controls your valve gear. You see it comes down and connects here to the drive shaft. Controls the timing, make sure your valve's open and closed at the right time. That's controlled by the same reverser lever that you have on any locomotive inside the cab. See here, you have the piston is just up above here, and this slides down. You get the crank coming down here, and here's your crank. You see these are rotated from each other. Of course, you always want to rotate the cylinders because a cylinder is extremely weak in this position. So this cylinder is all the way up, and if you only try to put steam into this cylinder, it's not going to be able to move. The cylinders on the other sides, though, are rotated from that, and those are at about their strongest point. So that will let you get the train moving in the direction you want to make it move. And that's how this thing works. So Shay locomotives like this, with their, frankly, rather odd-looking asymmetry, solved a massive problem in the logging world and the mining world. And that's why locomotives like this one are the Industrial Revolution. If they didn't want us to use it, they wouldn't have put a rope here. Hey, just real quick before you go. If you could help me out, like, subscribe, share this video, hit notify so you know when new stuff comes out, that'd be great. Also, if you could help out financially, even better, patreon.com/industrial revolution, or click on the shop link here in the video or channel description, go out to my affiliate store. Anything you put in your cart, the channel gets a percentage, helps cover all my travel costs, so I can keep coming out here on location to make these videos for you. Thanks a lot. I'll see you next week.